Hello and welcome back to the show. Perhaps you caught the previous episodes where I was looking at a Sega Saturn game in the last episode, and I'm going to be doing the same this time round. However, it's not going to be a popular Capcom beat-em-up I'm going to be looking at this time. Oh no. I'm going to be looking at a sports game, namely fishing. Now, this is quite an unusual one really, that you kind of would have expected to come out somewhere else in the world, and I hadn't actually heard of this game before I picked it up really cheap on eBay, and it's Sea Bass Fishing 2. Now this is a sequel to a game where the first game came out in the UK and Europe, and that was in 1996. This game here is the 1997 sequel, which didn't come out in anywhere else apart from Japan. What's quite interesting about this series in general is that it wasn't released in North America, either the first or the second one, whereas we got the first one but didn't get the second. The Americans didn't get it at all, which I kind of would have expected that at least one of the games would have released over there, but here we are, it didn't. So this came out in the April of 1997 with a budget version following in 1998. So relatively late for the Saturn's life cycle, but still not late enough for it not to release, at least somewhere else. And what we have here is not really the arcade standards that you would expect from Sega Bass Fishing, which released on the Dreamcast in the preceding year. It's more simulation based than this. It's very tranquil, it's peaceful, and you've really got to take your time and be patient with this game. But that's not to say that this isn't a rewarding game. There's a couple of game modes on it itself, which you have the tournament mode and free fishing. You have an instruction on the main menu, which if you click on is all in Japanese, so that's no good to you really. I didn't click on the cooking part of the main menu because I wasn't too sure what I'd be doing with that, so didn't do that. You've got records on here which obviously will record all the biggest fishes that you catch in the game, and the options are very, very sparse. It's really just going through sound options rather than any gameplay mechanics that you can modify on this. Anyway, I decided that I was going to prompt for free fishing mode on this rather than going for the tournament mode. I've kind of felt that had I gone with the tournament mode there might have been a language barrier on this. So free fishing mode is where we went. Now, you can do all sorts of stuff here. Once you've inputted your name in, it will take you to a screen which allows you to choose the conditions and the time of day that you want to fish in. Naturally, the early hours of the morning, I believe, are the best times to catch the best fish. You can choose your tackle and also your lure. I'm not too familiar with fishing, so I just went with the basic stuff that it offers you to begin with. But I'm led to believe you can actually change these as you play the game once you get into it. Once you're there, you can pick the area that you want to be in, which a lot of these are very reminiscent to Sega Bass Fishing, to be honest, but perhaps they are famous fishing points anyway, which both games have taken their inspiration from. This game was released by JVC in Japan, which is quite interesting because when the game started up, it had his master's voice written next to the logo, which in this country, his master's voice is the chain of stores abbreviated to HMV. So I don't know whether there's any sort of connection there at all, but that is what it is. Anyway, moving back to the game. Right, so it's quite simple really. You start off with a character who's on the shoreline. Graphics look quite nicely presented, to be honest, if not a little bit basic, but this is a 32-bit game, and we expect that the graphics are going to be pretty bland by today's standards. So I started at 5:20 AM in the morning here, and sort of working out the controls of this. You can move the left and right bumpers to move your character from left to right, so you can pick a different casting off point. You can, it's much like a golf game actually. When you cast off the rod, that it fills up like a meter on the right hand side there, sort of rainbow meter, the top in the red being the furthest point in which you can cast your line to, and the green being sort of the lowest if you want to be closer to the shore. But I found this to be quite easy. You can either press the A, B or C to cast it. I think C is really the button you're supposed to be pressing, and I'm just mashing buttons in general to see what they do. Once you cast the line out, it's got sort of an animation in the sea. It's 3D of the lure itself, and then you move that around independently, much like you would on Sega Bass Fishing, to be honest. So you've carefully moved the line in, move the direction of where the lure's going to try and simulate what a fish would be doing. I found the first couple of times here when I did cast out, I wasn't really seeing anything at all, and I was a bit worried that I wouldn't have anything to show you with this at all. But by changing the direction of where you are in the game, you can actually get more success. And as I got on the footage here, I did catch 2 fish on this, and it gives you sort of their weights and gives you a nice little animation as they come in as well. So all in all, I'm quite impressed by this game. Considering I only paid like £5 for this, and the going rate for it probably is only about £15, I was quite lucky to catch it sort of one of those early morning biddings that ended and no one was really interested. But it's actually quite fun, and I think the crux of, obviously, the whole reason for making these episodes is, would you get any enjoyment playing this game with it being knocked out of Europe? And I think that you could, actually. Bearing in mind that you need your Sega Saturn cartridge or your Action Replay to bypass the region security on the Saturn itself. But once you're in the game, it's actually quite a fun little game to play, and if you've got like a couple of hours to spare, then I think you'll actually quite enjoy this, and it makes it a different pace to the usual arcadey stuff that's on the system. And yeah, it's nice and tranquil, and yeah, it's cheap and well worth picking up and putting into your collection. Certainly, it's not like sort of the visual novel games and things like that came out in Japan, which you can't really play because of the language barrier. This one is very accessible and has a fair meat of gameplay as well to it. So yeah, it gets my recommendation. Seek it out, and it's a good enough game. So I'll catch you in the next episode. Pleasantly surprised. Goodbye.